Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior and accomplished professional from Vienna, Austria, Mr. Erik Meyers. Erik, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Erik is the head of global marketing and communications and corporate communications of Lohmann and Rauscher. He's an award-winning author of a book titled The Accidental Change Agent, a fresh take on organizational change, and we'll speak about his book in a little while. So Erik, before we start speaking about Lohmann and Rauscher, tell me a little bit about your own journey.
I would say it's been quite international, quite varied, which for me personally was very enriching, but also I think is very important for people. I originally am from the US, as you probably can hear from my English. I've lived in Europe for now this year, 25 years. Wow. I've had hard to believe. I've had a varied career working in both IT development, IT support, long and varied in-depth experience in communications in various, mainly large companies, but also family-owned companies where I am now, in several countries. I worked in business strategy, and I think, always trying to learn something new and use what I've learned for the next step.
Amazing. And let's talk about Lohmann and Rauscher. Tell me a little bit about the company and what is your role?
So Lohmann and Rauscher, actually, this year we celebrate 25 years. It's a merger of two, one part of a German company, Lohmann Medical, as well as an Austrian company, Rauscher, both of which were founded in the 19th century. But the merger itself took place 1998, so 25 years this year we're celebrating. We have many, many years of experience in the medical products industry with a wide range of products, both for wound management, compression therapy, many different products for disinfection, for operating rooms, etc. So our claim is people healthcare, and we really focus on helping people get better and focusing on health. And this has always been a focus, and I really enjoy, I think, working here because it is focused on such an important topic. I mean, health is the most important thing you have. And I'm head of communications, so corporate communications, but also events, marketing services, and digital.
Wonderful. So for my viewers and listeners, let's start by asking you a very basic question. What is corporate communications and why is it important in the corporate world?
Excellent question. Corporate communications is so important because, whether you're an employee, a prospective employee, a customer, a prospective customer, you want to understand what a company does, what the direction is, where they're going, where their successes are, what their focus are. And our job is to basically provide that information, but not just information, also encourage and promote dialogue, both within the company and between the company and stakeholders. I think, if somebody's looking for a company today, they're looking to buy something or looking to apply for a job, they need to be able to also find information about the company. It's not just something they think of immediately. So our job is to make sure that's known, because I think former colleagues said perception is reality. If you don't find something or you don't find enough, you may think about the company in a certain way, which isn't necessarily true. So providing information and dialogue, I think, is very important, and also the focus.
And one of the things that, based on my experience and having spoken to many people, one of the things that is important is to build a strong corporate image, which also I'm sure is part of your mandate. My question is, what goes into building a strong image?
I think it starts with, or communication starts with a corporate strategy. You can't sort of create or do communications without thinking about the corporate strategy from which your communication strategy is based. I think companies are people who just create communications and don't connect it back to the corporate strategy. That's not going to work. So I think the image of the company itself is what the corporate strategy or vision and mission of the company are. So I said before, our corporate claim is people, health, care. And we want to make sure that that is lived internally, but also externally. And that we demonstrate that this is actually what we are doing. We have corporate values and also leadership principles, which we want to ensure are lived, and also demonstrate that they are being lived, and not that the company is saying one thing but perhaps isn't doing as good a job. And I think that's the biggest thing with corporate image. You want to make sure that what you're saying internally and externally around what the company is proven. Because otherwise that's where the disconnect happens, where perhaps a very positive corporate culture is promoted, but perhaps the reality is not quite that, or people aren't really sure. And that can be, I would say, that can damage a corporate image.
And based on your own experience, what are some of the common mistakes a lot of organizations make when it comes to corporate communications?
I think one I just mentioned, not connecting what you do in communications to the corporate strategy. And I think the other thing which I've seen, unfortunately, is, I mean, if you work in corporate communications, yes, you're in a very senior role or you work with senior leadership, but you still need to understand in depth what the company does, who are the customers, what are the products. And I think if you don't understand that, you really can't do your job. So it's not just about sort of high level strategy messaging, but really understanding what the company does, because otherwise you can't communicate. And I think also in corporate communications or communications in general, they tend to try to spin everything so everything's amazing. I think everything is not always amazing, and people are quick to, I would say, smell the if I may say BS that may be said. So particularly if in a merger and acquisition moment, employees want to understand, what the reasons are, but what may happen, and or a negative a crisis, even where you try to spin it positively, doesn't work. I think one key thing is also being open and honest with whomever you're talking to, whether it's internal or external. That gets you a lot of trust. And otherwise you can it can backfire, because if you try to spin it too much positively, these days, particularly, everything will be found out at one point, and then you end up having a bigger problem than you probably wanted.
Well said. It's also often been said, Erik, that a reputation can be destroyed very, very easily, but it's very tough to rebuild it. From a corporate communications perspective, what, in your opinion, are some of the most important qualities the leader should have?
I think it comes back to what I was just saying about corporate communications. I think being open and honest, and creating a basis of trust. So when people hear the person speaking, say the CEO, they know that what they're saying is being open and honest. And if there are problems, not trying to explain them away or worse, blame somebody else. I think taking responsibility also, because that's the role in general, the CEO. And also, being the CEO means you're the face of the company, both internal and external. And I think that's very important, that not all CEOs do. They may think their job is just to run the company, but in the end, as you said, reputation, or the reputation of the company is based on what they say and do. And particularly for companies on the stock exchange, one wrong word or mess up or can really cause a huge drop in stock price. And I think taking that job very seriously, or that role very seriously, that you're the face of the company, both internally and externally.
Interesting. It's also been said, and I remember, when I had started working, and we talk about the organization, there used to be a general thumb rule, which I'm not sure is applicable today, but it said that when there is bad news, release it on a Friday. And when there's good news, release it on a Monday, because it used to be in newspapers, and the weekend no one would read newspapers. I'd love to get your thoughts on what is the spin that one can give when the news is not so good?
I mean, I guess there's a big difference, or there can be a big difference between whether a company's on the stock exchange or not.
Yeah.
If there's certain news and you're on the stock exchange, you have some legal requirements of when
Right.
to communicate something, and you can't really hold it for the Friday or Monday. I think these days news cycle is 24/7. So even corporate news that's good or bad on a weekend, people read, and actually often I would say, from my experience, people tend to read a lot more on the weekend when they have time. I think if you have good news or bad news, I think it's important to connect it to something. If you have, I mean, good news, particularly if you have an event that you know is coming up, then connect it there, or announce it there because you want to do that. I think bad news, depending on what it is, also whether you're on the stock exchange or not, holding it back is probably also not a good idea because, again, to what I was saying before, you should be open and honest as much as you can. And yeah, I guess if it's really bad news, getting in front of it as quickly as possible by announcing and saying you realize something is much better than waiting for the press. And with the cycle these days, 24/7, and so much comes out anyway with social media, you're probably better doing it earlier than later.
Well said. My next question to you, Erik, is how is technology changing the world of corporate communications? One, of course, you mentioned is 24/7. But there's so much new technology and so many different social media platforms. How do you, as the corporate communications head, determine with your teams what platforms to go to, how to make an announcement?
That's a very good question. I think there's a lot of my motto I say is fight the hype. There's a lot of hype around technology. And many companies are told, or many gurus say, oh, jump on this platform or that platform. Or if people say, oh, every company has to be on TikTok. I think it all starts again with a corporate strategy, which defines your communication strategy. And then you have to be very focused. So first, you need to understand where are your target groups, who are your target groups, and where might they be. And in the end, regardless of how large your communications team is, you have a focus. So, for example, you don't have 10 or 15 social media platforms. You could never manage them. And in the end, it can be a danger if you miss something that somebody commented somewhere. So I think really it's looking at what your strategy is, your communication strategy, where you should be, but also then with the focus, but also then continually reevaluating. So, I mean, social media, for example, there's so many new platforms or there's many new trends in internal communications. You don't necessarily want to jump on all the trends, but you should be aware of them and also look at, whether they make sense for your company.
My next question to you is on culture. And I've lived and worked in many, many different countries. And the way people communicate regarding their organizations varies dramatically. Some cultures love to talk about a lot of the things that they're doing. Some cultures say, let my bottom line do the talking. I'd love to get your perspective on how does culture impact corporate communication?
That is something that fascinates me. And particularly in global companies, you really need to be, I would say, global, meaning you understand that there are these different cultures, particularly different languages, and what they want to hear, how they want to hear it is different. So I think when you're working in a global company, you really need to have people in the local countries who can work with you to understand what the key topics are. And I think from a global perspective, the biggest thing is also to watch what you're communicating. You can easily overwhelm, particularly employees, with 20 key important topics, which maybe headquarters thinks is important, but the people on the ground are often dealing with sales, customers, and don't have that much time. And I think you need to really be careful on what you translate or not. I mean, most companies, English is a key language, and people, I would say, at least passive English, if you work in a global company, it should be quite good. But then again, for instance, our company, we have half of our team members that are in production or logistics, and their English maybe isn't that good. So also looking at what topics are you communicating and what you need to translate where, because particularly for internal topics, it's key that you want to make sure they understand it and they feel included, rather than something in English which perhaps they don't understand very well.
So one more question for you about communication, and then we'll move to another, to your book. Based on your own experience, what are some of the signals to watch out for to understand that a company is facing a crisis from the perspective of communication?
Crisis.
I mean, there's lots of bad news coming out. There is, a lot of negative factors happening. What are some of the things that you would look at and then start addressing?
I think in crisis communications, the most important thing is to be fast. I have a lot of experience in crisis where I've seen where a company tried to get all the details and facts before communicating. But in today's world, I mean, social media, YouTube, whatever, if something, say, is visible, can be quickly on social media. I think you need to be aware of that and put out a statement as quickly as possible that you understand something's happened, because the worst is that something really bad happens and the outside world thinks you are ignoring it, which I don't think you can do anyway. I think there, particularly for the worst crises, the CEO is really key to be the face of, or the voice of the company, to reassure people, reassure employees, but also customers that that they're aware of the topic and they're working on it. And if it's due to a fault or something, that being open and honest about faults, and not trying to, as I said before, trying to explain why it really isn't that bad when people probably won't believe you.
Yes, I agree. So let's move now to your book, Erik. You've written the book titled The Accidental Change Agent, a fresh take on organizational change. Tell me a little bit about your book.
Sure. Yeah, I over the years, I've thought or written a lot about topics like living abroad. I mean, I've been an American in Europe for a long time. I have a wide, in-depth experience also on digital transformation, digital communications and marketing, and communications. And I decided to put this book together. It's sort of, I call it a series of essays and musings also on my experience in business around these topics. Also, I think heavily focused on what I said before is my motto, fight the hype. So really trying to not just, I say, regurgitate what a lot of people are saying or hyping, particularly around digital, but explaining what my experience is also around leadership as a leader, or seen good or bad leadership. So it's, I think the key is really being someone who has a broad range of experience and in-depth experience, but also trying to evoke change in a company. And I think one of the key things you can do there is also the title Accidental Change Agent is being a bit different than people think, because that often brings change, and really also advocating for what you think is right rather than what you think people want to hear.
So would you like to share maybe some anecdotes from your book about what your experiences have been?
Sure. I think I guess the first thing that comes to mind is leadership. So many people I've seen who their goal is basically to be CEO or have a team lead function or manage people, because I think they think that's the great thing, because you have power, quote unquote, or as I guess more money, but you can coordinate people and you're so important now. I've seen so many times though where these people get the job and realize it's not just that. It's a lot of work. And to be a good leader, I would say you really need to be human, and it's not just about having a bunch of people and telling them what to do. I think the other thing I also mentioned in the book is about promoting leaders. And I think this is something some companies focus on, whereas others don't. But particularly for the senior leaders, are they promoting themselves, or are they trying to get a broad range of experience? Because that is the best way to move the company forward, rather than everybody agrees or everybody's saying or doing the same thing. And I think that's something that's also needs to be looked at. And also, is the company promoting people who are just loud and talking all the time, or the more arrogant, outspoken people, which unfortunately often gets senior leaders' attention, but
Mhm.
are they actually the right people for the job to get things done? That's the
Correct.
bigger question.
Interesting. So time for one more question. And this question is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. And based on your amazing experience across different businesses in multiple countries, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away from our conversation?
Mhm. Sure. One is basically be your own person. I think, I mean, particularly we only have one life to live,
Yeah.
and focusing too much on what other people expect or even what society expects, I think you'll find at some point that that's not really what you actually want. I think that's the first thing.
Mm.
The other thing really is you own your own time. So many people are busy, quote unquote, busy, so busy, have no time for anything. I think we waste so much time. Yeah, I mean, these days, particularly with phones and notifications popping up, and you end up not getting anything done, and realizing that you really can set boundaries and it's your own time to do things, plan things, and move your life and ideas forward. And I think the biggest thing for me and also personally is really learn. So be curious, try to learn new things, and particularly when you're looking or even starting in a career, I think these days it's very important to have more of a generalist background than a specialist background, because you really have, I mean, if I look at my own career, so many different things I did, which brought me to today, but actually really helped in my current role. And it's not something I necessarily planned, but I was just curious about different areas, both from a business perspective, but also personal.
Wonderful. And on that note, and your 3 amazing lessons: be your own person, you own your own time, and your third one was be curious and learn constantly. Thank you, Erik, for speaking to me about your own journey, about corporate communications. I think there's so many new things I learned, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners would have learned about corporate communications. What are the advantages? What are the pitfalls, etc.? Thank you also for speaking to me about your book, The Accidental Change Agent. I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out your book on Amazon. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to The Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.